Navigating the role as a nurse educator is very challenging and very rewarding all at the same time. What are some key strategies that we can use to navigate our way? As we think about our passion to be an excellent nurse, we're equally as passionate about becoming a really good nurse educator in the classroom, in the clinical setting, and in the skills lab. That's what we're going to cover in this snapshot. We're going to talk through each of the 12 biggest mistakes with some helpful tips that hundreds, if not thousands, of nurse educators have shared with us here at Dr. Sellers Educate. We want to share these helpful tips with you as you navigate your way. Or maybe you're thinking about transitioning from a nurse into that nurse educator role. Being a nurse educator is a specialty. Now, we know that there's sometimes anxiety associated with that first teaching responsibility that you have, standing up in front of a group and sharing with them your expertise can be a little bit nerve-wracking, shall we say, at times. But here's what we know. First of all, you want to be able to stand in the confidence that you have in knowing those concepts that you're teaching to your students. What does that take? You have to step back, reflect on what is it that you know about these concepts, and most importantly, what experiences can you draw into that learning experience with your students to ensure that they close their knowledge gaps, bridge that theory to practice gap, and make safe patient care decisions. Welcome back, everybody, to Dr. Sellers Educate. If this is the first time you are joining us, welcome. We are delighted that you are here. Make sure you subscribe to this channel so every time a new snapshot is released, you'll be notified. If you are returning, we are delighted that you're back as well. And we want you to take 2 steps as we get started with the content for this snapshot. First, we want you to go ahead and print out the worksheet that's listed right here in the description. Now we're on this 12 biggest mistakes with helpful tips journey. So you're going to print out each day, each session that you're joining us, each snapshot, you're going to print out that respective mistake that we're discussing. So right now, if you're watching this during our launch of this snapshot, we are on mistake number 1. Okay, so you click on the link below and you'll go right to the actual success workbook that will help guide you on your journey. All right, so the second step is to pull out Billings and Halstead, and we're going to do something different today. We're still in the 6th edition. We're going to go ahead and take a look at content that's in the actual textbook so that you can move forward and looking at concepts that we're going to talk about in this snapshot and have a clear understanding of what you should focus on as you think about the next steps on your journey as a nurse educator. Or maybe you're not a nurse educator and you're joining us just to hear a little bit about some evidence-based practices. Well, we know that you're watching us because we hear from you all, and we are delighted that you're here as well. So wherever you are on your journey towards nurse educator excellence or nursing excellence, we are happy that you are here. All right, so first and foremost, what we're going to do is we're going to look at some of the concepts that we'll be talking about as we move forward on the journey. All right, so first of all, pulling out Billings and Halstead, we're taking a look starting on page 12. Okay, so you will see box 1.1 on page 12. The content that we're covering in this snapshot is aligned with bullet number 3 and number 4 under competency 8 in box 1.1. So what does it say? As a nurse educator functioning within the educational department, number 1, we should develop networks, collaborations, and partnerships to truly enhance the role that we are engaging in with our journey as a nurse educator. Okay, within our responsibilities includes developing these collaborations and partnerships. And then second of all, we should determine our own professional goals within the context of academic nursing and the mission of the parent institution and nursing program. Okay, so page 12, box 1.1 is going to align with the content that we're covering in this snapshot. And then the second page I want you to look at is going to be covered on pages 538 and 539. So take a listen to some of these key points that you will want to write down as you move forward on your journey to help you avoid some of the pitfalls that we're going to walk through associated with these 12 biggest mistakes. So we want to be able to leverage the conferences that we're attending, the seminars, the workshop, because that's important. That's an important part of our faculty development. So you want to leverage the resources that are available to you, right? When we think about networking and collaboration, the specific competency concepts that we just looked at in our workbook or in our textbook, Billings and Halstead 6th edition on page 12. And then the second component, and this one's really important, and this is related to mentoring. Okay, so taking a look at that last paragraph on page 538, it says the ideal mentor is dedicated to helping the mentee develop in both a personal and professional way. If you are on the journey to C&E, you should expect some questions about mentoring and professional development, faculty development, and how it aligns with your goals as an educator. We know that lifelong learning is a commitment that is described in Malcolm Knowles' adult learning theories work, and we want to be able to embrace our journey together with partners that are going to help us achieve excellence in the classroom. That is through integration of evidence-based practices, as well as reflecting on what worked well with those classroom and clinical experiences, what didn't go so well, and what am I going to do differently next time. Now is the best time in history to becoming a certified nurse educator, right? This is the best time to become a certified nurse educator and to achieve those goals that you have already outlined for yourself. Well, first, we have to talk a little bit about what do we mean by a nurse educator? What is the role in nursing education that we serve? Well, first of all, we bridge that theory to practice gap. We connect theoretical knowledge to those practical applications, equipping nurses, future nurses, with real world challenges that are going to help them achieve competency and ultimately provide quality patient care. We are addressing the nursing shortage by equipping nurses, our nursing students, to be practice ready as they transition into those clinical settings. We want to impact clinical outcomes by integrating evidence-based practices, developing checklists, our clinical checklists that are aligned with those evidence-based practices included in our textbooks as well as our literature article. And of course, we want to align those steps on that checklist with the actual clinical practices that are happening in our healthcare settings. And then we are absolutely enhancing patient safety. We are helping students connect the dots, clarify any muddy points that they have as they move forward towards achieving excellence in the clinical setting. All right, and then next, what we want to do is think about where are we today? When we take on the responsibility of bridging the theory practice gap, we want to step back and reflect on where are our weaknesses or opportunities for improvement. When we think about clinical outcomes, that means that we're going to have to be up to speed on those clinical practices, right? It may mean that we are not clinically practicing right now. However, we still have to be knowledgeable about what those evidence-based practices are for the clinical setting in order to ensure that we are integrating the best patient safety standards that we are holding our students to. And our ability to truly address the nursing shortage is going to require us to be competent in the classroom, right? This goes back to how we started our conversation in looking at the competencies that are associated with competency 8. What are those behaviors that are aligned with the content that we're discussing in the snapshot? And how does it show up in the classroom and learning experiences that we are creating for our students? What are some of the trends that we are hearing about? Technology. We want to be able to leverage technology in a way that supports the advancement of knowledge and competency in the clinical setting as well as in the classroom setting. We know that online learning platforms continue to expand and offer a way to leverage utilization of technology, and we want to integrate that relationship element as much as we can to support the student learning experience. Now, one way we can do that is by simply developing a warm-up video or a welcome video at the beginning of every week, right? When we start a new week with our students. That's a way to leverage these platforms to create flexibility for our students to increase those touch points that we're having, knowing that students are working. Many of them may be working full-time jobs. Now, that is not something we encourage. And we know in the economic situation that we're in right now, sometimes that is required, and we want to offer as much flexibility, yet still hold our students accountable for meeting those learning objectives all at the same time. And then competency-based education is not enough just to know those concepts. We have to engage students in a way that allows them to demonstrate those behaviors that are associated with achieving competence. That by 2030, that's only 5 years away if you're watching this during the live release, we will be at a 4.5 million nurse shortage in the world. That's a lot of nurses. So, what is our responsibility when you think about our role as a nurse educator? Well, first of all, we want to minimize burnout, and we can do that by following these 12 steps in the process as we outline these 12 biggest mistakes that you want to consider when you think about what your responsibility is in your nurse educator role. All right, so first let's take a look at our thought-provoking question before we get any deeper. All right, so now you have content that is included in the textbook, Billings and Halstead. You already have printed out your worksheet for mistake number one. Okay, and now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about our thought-provoking question as we wrap up and looking at, as a last step, the actual rationale for each of the correct option and the incorrect option, as well as taking a look at what other resources are going to help you avoid mistake number one. We have a new nurse educator, Dr. Alex, who has begun teaching a fundamentals course but hasn't defined learning objectives for each module. Students frequently ask for clarification on expectations and feel unprepared for exams. What is the most effective way for Professor Alex to establish clear goals in the classroom? All right, so that's our question, and we have three options. And before you even start looking at the options, we always want you to think about, okay, number one, what is this question really asking me? And second of all, what is it that I know for sure about content that is included in the question? Okay, so now let's take a look at the three options. All right, so first we have A, create detailed learning objectives aligned with course competencies. B, provide a syllabus and let students identify their learning priorities. Or C, reflect on end of course evaluations to adjust goals for future cohorts. All right, so I want you to think about those two questions that we mentioned. And the next step is I want you to think about, what is your answer? And remember that, first of all, we don't write questions for NLN, right? That would be a conflict of interest. And second of all, this is called a thought-provoking question for a reason. We want to stimulate thought. And as we debrief, we will take a look at the correct answer and the two incorrect options with the hope of helping you close your knowledge gaps as you move forward. All right, so back to our worksheet. We're taking a look at mistake number one, which is not establishing clear goals. Did you know, how many of you knew? Go ahead and put in the chat for me. You can say yes or no. How many of you were aware, or put in the comment section? We do engage with our colleagues during the live launch. Okay, so if you're here live, perfect. If not, we still want you to put it in the comment section. So first, what we want you to do is yes or no. Do you already have clear objectives, clear goals that you have for the year? Okay, so whenever you're watching this snapshot, we want you to write down yes or no, or put in the comments yes or no. Have you already established clear goals, clear objectives for yourself over the next semester? Okay, let's just take one semester at a time. And if you haven't, I want you to go ahead and write on this worksheet, what's getting in the way of you establishing what your goals are or objectives for the semester. Now, I know for some of you, it may simply be, I want to get through the semester because it's really hard, it's really challenging. And I can definitely appreciate those feelings. Okay, I think we all go through those same challenges from time to time, but I want you to go ahead and write down what's getting in the way. Mistake number one is failing to set those clear objectives that can lead to confusion and inefficiency. If we don't have clear behaviors aligned with the goal that we have written down, it's hard for us to really map out a plan, right? So that leads to confusion because we know where we want to go, but we don't know the steps that are necessary to get there. That's the biggest difference between objectives and goals. Goals may be, or the goal may be, that one overarching mission that you want to achieve. Those specific objectives are going to outline what key steps are you going to take to get there. So let me give you an example. Of course, I'm going to use the C and E, right? So if you want to become certified as a nurse educator, the first step is for you to identify what that timeline is going to be. Okay, so when is it that I want to achieve certification? And then we want you to use a backwards design model. Okay, so let's just say you've decided, you know what, I want to be certified in 3 months. Okay, perfect timing. So you say 12 weeks, I got 12 weeks. So what are your first steps going to be? First, you're going to map out what resources are you going to use to help you on your journey. Okay. And then the second step we want you to think about is putting it on your calendar. Once you've identified my goal is to achieve C&E by within 90 days. The first step I'm going to take is now map out or identify what resources am I going to use. And number two, how am I going to gather those resources? How am I going to secure the support that I need, identify the textbooks that I need so that I can achieve success in meeting my goal within those 90 days? Okay. Another good example is when we're traveling. For the first time, if we're going somewhere, we know where we want our end destination to be, but we don't know the highways we need to use to get there, right? We don't know how long it's going to take us to get there, but we know our goal is to arrive at a certain destination, but our specific objectives or the behaviors that we're going to have to demonstrate in order to achieve our goal have to be spelled out, right? They have to be mapped out in order for us to ultimately achieve our goal. So that's going to promote us to be more efficient, more productive, and decrease frustration. So the solution, if you click here, this is a hyperlink to take you to a YouTube snapshot that's going to help you identify where your gaps are, probably, hopefully, and then help you navigate how you're going to achieve your goal, what steps you're going to take. And then we do have a clip from Dr. Miles when she shared her testimonial about her journey and how she focused on priorities to help her achieve certification. Learning is a gateway to opportunity. It is the compass that guides us toward a brighter tomorrow. Learning is a process, right? It's not one point in time. It, just like we tell our students, it actually develops over time based on our learning experiences and based on feedback that we're able to gather, data that helps inform us as to whether or not we have achieved competency related to that skill, related to that knowledge. Okay, so now what we want to do is go back as we wrap up our time together. We are going to stop sharing here and we're going to go back to our actual presentation just to close a couple of loops about a few elements. So first, when you look at common mistakes, the one that we're talking about today is not identifying your goals, right? That was our priority for this session. And then what will happen is, as we move forward on the journey, we'll talk about other segments as well that you want to make sure that you avoid in order to achieve really some joy, right, in the work that you're doing, because you're doing hard work and we want to be here to support you. So not establishing those clear, measurable goals, it is essential not only for us as educators, but also we want to role model this behavior for our students. Without specific targets or behaviors or steps in the process that we identify to help us achieve our goals, it can be challenging to track our progress and to celebrate those wins along the way. And then the last challenge that we face if we don't establish clear goals is being able to assess whether learning outcomes have been met, right? We want to be able to do that as we think about the steps on our journey. All right, so now we're going to go and flip over to our thought-provoking question and see how you did with that. All right, so we're taking a look at the question, the thought-provoking question. Hopefully everybody has had a chance now to choose the answer that they think is correct, and we're going to see how close you came to that answer. All right, so now we will go over to Prezi. Here we go. So if you chose A as the answer, you are correct. So give yourself a round of applause. Creating that detailed learning, those lists of detailed learning objectives, improve clarity and focus for both instruction and assessment, right? Because what do we do when we are writing our exams, right? We start, don't you love AI? We start with our blueprint. We map all of our questions on the exam to content that we have developed in our course, and we also map it to our learning objectives. We want to make sure that we have closed the loop to the best of our ability to help align those theory or help close those theory practice gaps with our students ultimately, and to align the evidence-based content in our courses with the actual questions that are on the exam. All right, so now we do want to take some time to look at the thought-provoking question incorrect answers and the rationale. All right, so if you chose B, the reason why that one is not correct is because even though we know writing a syllabus is helpful, we have to pair it with explicit, being very specific with our objectives as it relates to the learning process and how our students are going to learn. Okay, so that's a really important part of our process. And then if you chose C, the reason why it's not correct is that by the time we get to those end of course evaluations, it's too late to influence current learning that happens, right? So yes, if you were attracted to C, it was hopefully an effective distractor in the sense that it sounded like a good option, but the best answer is going to be A. Really, the key term related to C is those end of course evaluations simply because it's too late to influence the learning process. And what was our question? It specifically asked about real-time interventions, right? Students are frequently asking questions on expectations and they feel unprepared for exams. So we're looking at what ways, the most effective way that Professor Alex can make changes, right, in helping students still achieve those goals that are in the classroom. If you didn't choose the correct answer, we don't want you to be too frustrated about it, okay? What we want you to do is just take some time to pause, reflect, and act. You may decide that, you know what, I need more of these thought-provoking questions. Well, we have some available for our colleagues that may need that. So right here in the description, you will see a link to 20 questions that we have developed to help you comprehend concepts. Okay, so it's not only about answering the correct option because these are all thought-provoking questions, but we also want you to think about the rationale and ensure that you're closing your knowledge gaps as you move forward on your. What was it that attracted you to the incorrect options? Okay, and then we want you to take action, knowing that as you move forward on your journey towards nurse educator excellence, that 70 to 80% of the questions are going to be at that application and analysis level, okay, on the C&E exam. And the other step we want you to think about is integrating these evidence-based practices into your everyday work. Whether you're on the journey for C&E or not, we want to demonstrate alignment with the nurse educator competencies that have been outlined by NLN. And one other interesting fact, I'm not sure if you were aware, but professional development for nursing faculty is emphasized in the accreditation standards for both the Commission on Collegiate Nursing Education, which is CCNE, and the National League for Nursing Commission for Nursing Education Accreditation. Okay, so we thought that was an interesting fact that you would want to know about. And if you're curious as it relates to where these specific standards and behaviors actually show up, when you take a look at the CCNE standards, this is standard 2, program quality. A key element under 2D says that this element highlights the importance of academic support services for faculty, including opportunities for professional development. And then we have standard 3, specific 3E. This element emphasizes the program's teaching learning practices should support the achievement of expected student outcomes, which includes ensuring faculty are engaged in ongoing, keyword, ongoing professional development to enhance their teaching effectiveness. And then last, the CNEA standard, as of right now, standard 3, culture of excellence and caring for faculty. It underscores that faculty should be provided with opportunities and resources by the institution and program to engage in professional development and lifelong learning, which we know is all aligned with Malcolm Knowles' work, to maintain role effectiveness. So both of these accrediting bodies recognize that there's huge value in continuous professional development opportunities to help engage us as nursing faculty with integrating evidence-based standards in our everyday work to best support our students and also to help support us. And again, identifying what our goals and objectives are and making sure we have the support that we need to achieve those. We hope that this snapshot has been helpful for you all, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one. Have a great one, everybody.